Welcome to both of you. I've met each of you beforehand and we've kind of gone through things on a one-to-one basis, but just so that there's no misunderstanding or misconceptions about what I might have discussed with you, I'll explain the kind of the headlines of the whole thing again, just very briefly. You have the kind of programme what the day would look like. Now there's no set timetable on this. It takes as long as it takes, and it's important that you feel comfortable with the process as it goes along, so that you know, there's kind of different comfort zones. The fact that you've come here, you've kind of come into a certain comfort zone. There's a certain comfort as well, as I explained to you previously, about the whole confidentiality that surrounds this. And there's different zones of confidentiality. This whole thing is confidential. It doesn't go outside of this room unless you're willing for something to go outside of this room. So what you discuss with me, and what we all discuss together, remains just between us, unless you're happy that it goes somewhere further. Equally, if at some stage I think that it might be no harm if I have time with you, or I have time with you, what's said in those individual sessions, again, will remain within those individual sessions, unless, again, you're comfortable with me saying something to you, or vice versa. Or it may be that arising out of the one-to-one meetings, we might come back together, and you might actually discuss it directly. It depends on what you're comfortable with as the process goes ahead. Now, one of the important things is the physical comfort. I know you're coming to this after a day's work, and it's a hot day, so if you feel uncomfortable, you need a break from water or the toilet or just time out, think, there's no problem. We'll take it as long or as slow as you feel comfortable with. The fact that you're here at all and you're willing to try this is a huge vote of confidence in just the process, but also in me, and I hope that I'll be able to help you. My job here is to try and help you. It's not to adjudicate, it's not to approve of anything you say. Now, when I'm listening to each of you, I might be nodding, I might say yes. That doesn't mean I'm validating what you're saying and saying, yes, you're right, or you're right. It's simply, I'm taking on board what you're saying. And one thing I want you to be conscious of as well is that there may be issues that you're going to have to deal with that one or other of you might not be comfortable with. But if you can think of it like this, that literally something's placed on the table, and it's not something that's thrown at you by the other person, but something of concern to them, something they feel very strongly about. They want to put it out there for discussion. And it's literally putting it on the table here or putting it up there. And if you can try and think of it in the abstract and not get too emotionally involved in the issue, you can't, you're not Mr. Spock or Vulcans, so you can't do that. There's a human reaction. But if you can try and keep it on kind of an even keel and take the emotion out of it as much as possible. Yeah. Also, leading on from that, there's the question of comfort in the other side. I think from my discussions with both of you feel that there are issues that you want to put to the other side and address. But this is a non-confrontational environment. You should feel comfortable in being able to bring them out and discuss them in a safe kind of environment. And that's where we are here. But if you feel uncomfortable at any stage, you want time out, or you want to talk to me on a one-to-one basis, just let me know. So it's a question of moving through the process of see if you fit. The intermediate you already signed, it's entirely without prejudice, there's no commitment, you're not prejudicing yourself in any way. There's nothing, unless you actually arrive at a point where you're agreed as to what the future is going to be. Nothing you say here will come back to bite you. In kind of an adjudication process, you're looking back to see what happened. There's a certain element of that here, but the focus hopefully will be on moving forward, right, and you deciding on what you want to do for the future. Each of you, obviously, as the parties involved, have the authority to sort this out because you're directly involved in it. Now, in no particular order, would you like to suggest who might start, or who might raise the issues? So, as part of the agenda, what I want to do is get the headlines, the front page, so to speak, of what the issues are. If you can imagine the 9 o'clock news, where Doyle used to come on and say the headlines are. Yeah. If we can do that first, then we can get into the rest of the story afterwards. But which one of you would like to start first?
Well, we will start.
Are you comfortable with that?
It's fine.
Okay.
Basically, me and Sharon belong to a rather successful orchestra here in Dublin. Things are going very well. We're very respected within the musical community here. The musical community is very small, which makes this matter very, very tricky for me as manager of the orchestra.
When you say manager, what exactly does the manager do? Because managers do different things in different places.
I generally organise tour dates. I act as a HR manager as well.
Right.
From time to time. Mainly, I make sure everybody is where they are, when they should be. Various small things like when they're on time. I organise more the business aspect of the orchestra, such as money, more the financial aspects of the orchestra. Generally, I'm a go-to person for any of the musicians in the orchestra if they have any complaints, if they have any issues that might arise. And yeah, that's basically it.
And do you play an instrument just out of interest?
I used to.
I
I used to play instruments. I still play a bit of piano. I played a lot of it over the years. However, I got into the more business organisation background of orchestras. I used to be part of an orchestra myself.
Okay.
So basically, the issue was we were entered into a very prestigious festival that was taking place in Dublin this year. I hadn't realised Sharon and a few other members of the orchestra had issues with another orchestra from another country that were coming into the festival. I later found out that they had written a letter to a newspaper, a local newspaper, that's widely read, stating their issues against this orchestra playing in the festival because of their countries and their government's political motives, their lack of human rights.
Right.
So that was fine to a certain extent. I would have liked to have known about that first. I don't necessarily agree that that's something that should have been publicised during the festival. It can look very poor on the orchestra as a whole. I feel that she should have told me before they did this. Now that was just one of the issues. That very orchestra that Sharon and some other colleagues seem to have a problem with were playing recently, and they were reported to have heckled them quite a lot in their performance, which I'm not happy with, because as a small musical community, everybody knows.
When you say reported,
It was reported to me from people that I know within the theatre, and I wasn't happy with that at all, especially because the kind of people that would come and see a lot of the symphonies are the kind of people who are always coming to see symphonies. Everybody knows each other. Again, the musical community is quite small and reflects very poorly on the orchestra. So I was left with no other choice because of both actions. I felt that I warned her and that I would be suspended her for a period of time until the situation was resolved.
When you say you warned her, what was the nature of the warning?
I told her that I would have to suspend her. The warning was an expulsion. I did not know what way I was going with it yet. I have my bosses as well. There's kind of a pyramid structure within management here. I'm quite high up. I do a lot of face-to-face dealing with the members of the orchestra. So basically, that would have to be run by a few people first. The conductor himself.
What would have to be done by?
I would have to, if I need to make any major decisions such as a dismissal, I would have to run it by a higher management as well. So that was the situation. I warned her that was a possibility, and I told her that I was well within my rights, and I felt that I should he should be suspended for a period of time until the matter's resolved.
Okay.
And then Sharon said that she was going to look and take legal action, which is a road that I don't want to go down, the orchestra doesn't want to go down, and that is the reason why I believe the mediation is the first step to take before going down a messy path of taking legal action against the orchestra.
Just as I'm clear, so are the matters of concern for you? Firstly, there was no warning, the letter was done written.
Yeah, there's no warning.
You're concerned about the image of the orchestra.
That's right.
And something is issued in the name of the orchestra, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay. You're concerned about the report of heckling.
Mm-hmm.
So then your response was, as you say, that you suspended her.
That's
You
right.
feel you're within your rights to suspend her.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the issue of further action raised. Is there?
Yes.
So is that the fair summation of
That's a fair estimation, yeah.
Okay. Right. Sharon, from your perspective, what are the issues as far as you were concerned?
Well, primarily, I don't think that the other team should have been allowed into the concert in the first place. I have every right to express my beliefs within any forum, because we're blessed with a country which has freedom of speech, unlike the country that was allowed into the competition. It was the Chinese orchestra. And I don't feel I should be suspended for speaking up for human rights, for having a voice. If I wrote to a national newspaper and said how wonderful this competition was, I wouldn't be expected to have to tell him that I was writing to a newspaper to say how wonderful it was. So why should I have to tell him that I'm critiquing it? I can say whatever I want. And the fact that other people in the orchestra agree with me, I think is great, that they're aware of the issues. But primarily we're individuals with the right to an opinion, and to express that opinion in any forum that we wish. And I think suspending me from my job on that basis is morally wrong, and it's legally wrong. So that's where I'm coming from.
When you said you were suspended, were you the only person suspended? Or?
No, the group of us were suspended.
So this is presumably the first of a series of mediations with everybody who's involved?
Well, actually we were just called into the office and told that because of our actions we were being suspended from the choir pending further investigation. We could possibly be expelled from the whole thing, which I suppose he's calling it our warning, is our suspension, but that kind of leaves us no room to do anything else one way or the other. It just depends on whether he wants to expel us or not. That's not a warning, that's...
Okay. In terms of my background is actually as a lawyer. My natural inclination as a lawyer is to try and fill in gaps in information. So that's why I'm going to ask these kind of questions. Is there an actual contract that you would have signed in terms of your terms and conditions of employment? And does it say anything about this kind of scenario, this situation?
It says that when you're wearing the National Philharmonic Orchestra's uniform out in public, you should conduct yourself in a particular manner as you're representing the group. We went to watch their concert independently. We all happened to be in the National Philharmonic Orchestra, but there was no indication that we were members of it. You know, we weren't wearing the uniform, and we were there as individuals watching a concert. We played in like everyone else.
So this was at the concert where there's a report of heckling, is it?
Yeah, this wasn't at the one that we were playing at. This was a separate concert by itself.
Okay. The issues that were kind of ventilated, I'll come back on all of those and get your response on them in a minute. I just want to make sure that I've correctly understood what the issues of concern to you are. So you're saying that the fact that this Chinese orchestra was admitted to the competition in the first place is an issue, as far as you're concerned. Is that something over which Victor has any control.
No, and that's why, well, first of all, we petitioned the council of the concert, for which we didn't get any response. And that's why we wrote to the Times about the issue, which publicised our concerns about the concert.
Right.
So after that, we still didn't have any response from the council. So we felt we needed to make our voices heard, and we did.
Okay. So in terms of the fact that the orchestra was admitted, that's an issue that you raised with the board. But it's not something that Victor has any role in or can any influence.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't grant admittance.
Okay.
It was great for us to be admitted to the concert in the first place, but whether we should be part of something that condones countries which allow that is a separate issue, I suppose.
Okay. And secondly, is that you feel you were exercising a right of free speech in writing to the paper. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in terms of the concert, I heard from Victor there was a report of heckling. Was there?
I can tell you, yeah, we were heckling.
Okay. And again, am I to take it that you feel that was part of the freedom of speech
Yes, absolutely.
exercise?
If people want to sit there and cheer while you're playing, that's fine. And if I want to boo while someone's playing, that should be fine too. And we were actually removed from the event.
Right. Would the orchestra members have understood the purposes of going?
The
actual Chinese orchestra?
Well, yeah, I think we made it pretty clear. While those individuals might not be directly involved in any of the human rights movements that are going on, is irrelevant. You know, they're their country, and some of those people might be in fact victims of oppression in China and censorship. So I would think that if anything, while they might be upset by the booing, like, they should be grateful.
Okay. Are there any other issues? So, as I understand it, the issues for you are the fact that the orchestra was admitted, but that's not something that we can deal with in the context of this exercise with Victor, because he doesn't have control over that, and he wasn't involved in that decision. And then it's down to a question of the two instances that you feel were an expression of freedom of speech. One was the writing of the letter, and the other was the heckling, and the third thing then was the subsequent disciplinary action that was taken. Am I correctly summarising the
Yes,
issues concerned?
because disciplinary action on his part, as you've mentioned, shouldn't have anything to do with the concert, you know, the original concert and our stance on it as individuals.
Okay. Is the fact that he was the person who initiated a disciplinary action, is that an issue for you? In the sense, is he the appropriate person to do it?
He is. If somebody was going to be suspended or expelled,
right.
It would come through him. I don't know what his own personal beliefs are,
Okay.
with regard to the human rights issues, and I suppose in one way that's secondary, but at the same time that's something that's important to me on a personal level. However, he had no right to try and silence us. Me, Sharon, as an individual going to a concert saying, I object to this group of people being in this. And then I come outside of that, not in my uniform, get called in during a practice and told you're being suspended because of what you did in your free time.
Okay. So am I correct in just taking a bit from what both of you said? You were identifiable as a member of the orchestra insofar as you identified yourself in the letter, is that correct?
We said that we were a choir group or an orchestra group from Dublin that had been admitted to the concert, so anybody who would know about the concert would know it was the Dublin Philharmonic.
Okay, so it wasn't as such that you identified yourselves, it was that you're identifiable, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then in terms of the action at the concert where you were heckling, again, is it that you were identifiable rather than identifying yourselves as members of the orchestra?
Yeah, we didn't go there saying we're the Dublin Philharmonic Orchestra. We just people would kind of know who we were.
Okay. So am I correct in understanding that your concern was that they were identifiable in writing the letter?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. And an issue for you was the fact that the letter was written, but you didn't know in advance it was going to happen.
I didn't know. I would have appreciated having been told before any kind of statement was made on behalf of the orchestra, or in particular musicians that are well known for being part of the orchestra.
So the issue isn't, am I right in thinking that what you're saying, the issue isn't the fact that the letter was sent, but that you didn't know about it in advance, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. The Sharon has raised the issue that she feels the writing of the letter, just to keep it on that page for the moment, was an exercise of her right to express her opinion. Is there any issue in that? Because what I'm sensing from you is that you didn't get such a problem with the letter being sent. It was more the fact that you weren't warned about it in advance.
The not being warned about it is the main issue that I have. I do personally agree with what Sharon believes about the country with the human rights violations. I personally think it is disgraceful now, the competition that's happening at the moment. It's a massive cultural offence. I just don't think she should have taken that decision on her own, that I should have been told about it first, because it puts me and a lot of other people in a very compromising, very embarrassing position. As much as many people might even agree with her views, it doesn't help.
Okay, so
the overall.
You personally agree with the view that she was expressing?
Yeah.
Were you aware that they shared those views?
No, I wasn't. And like I said, that matters to me on a personal level. But in the grand scheme of things, you know, I've still been suspended for my personal beliefs, irrespective of what his are.
Right. It's obviously something I learned today that both of you actually shared that view, so that's something you share in common as well. Had she actually told you, or had the other members of the orchestra who wrote the letter told you in advance, apart from the fact that you would have been aware in advance, what, if anything, would have changed? What would have been different?
If it had been done differently?
Well, no, if you had known in advance,
if I had known in advance,
you knowing it,
despite my own personal views, I probably still would have been against the letter. However, again, there probably wouldn't been a whole lot that I could do about it. We would have warned Sharon. The implications that it could have a negative effect on the orchestra, but really the situation is a combination of that and the heckling, and one without the other isn't as bad, but the two put together, it makes it a whole lot worse.
Okay.
And that's why she was suspended on those grounds for both incidents, it's not just for one.
Okay.
It nearly wasn't as bad to have the letter out, but then they publicly heckled them in front of a room of people who would have known her and the other colleagues. It's not acceptable in my view.
Okay, so in itself, it wasn't a major concern.
It wasn't a major concern, but that's not to say if I was in her position I would do the same.
Okay. Okay. But you feel as manager of the orchestra, you have to have a concern.
Yeah, I have to be able
about
to
the image
take
of
it
the
back a bit.
orchestra.
Yeah.
Can you understand
I
that concern?
I don't see why we would not want to have the image of an orchestra who stand up against human rights violations. I mean, that's a positive thing, you know, to be seen to be. However, as you said, we didn't go in going, we're the Dublin Philharmonic Orchestra, but as people would know who we are, so what? Like, that's a great thing. This is the Dublin Philharmonic Orchestra, and they don't stand for censorship. They don't stand for human rights being violated by a country internationally. Like, why is that a bad thing? why is that a
Well,
negative image? That's a great image to have.
We could probably spend a lot of time discussing that. In one sense, it's probably a policy issue that you both have views on. But am I right in thinking that it's something that you can contribute to in terms of a process with a view to formulation of policy? But ultimately, as I understand what you told me, the policy is decided by the board.
It's true. Now, we weren't happy about the way in which you conducted herself in both instances, but however, the heckling just shouldn't have happened. That goes without saying.
Is there a policy or an actual contractual provision governing things like this?
When they're publicly representing the orchestra, they have to conduct themselves in a manner that is respectable enough, because as an orchestra, you have to, not that you should be reserved, but there's a lot of respect. You know, you wouldn't cheer during a symphony. You'd clap at the end. It's kind of like going to a golf club and wearing the right gear.
Right.
You don't go into a golf club. A lot of golf clubs won't allow you to wear tracksuit bottoms and a hoodie as you go out of the green. It's the exact same kind of thing. It's just, the heckling just can't, we just can't accept that at all.
So
But the letter, again, it's something that we could possibly have supported them on. It's something, an issue we could have brought to the whole orchestra on it, and we could have publicly at another time stood out and made it aware to the public that we were against certain aspects in the world that we're not happy with, and we could have taken, I mean, it is a major responsibility to show, specifically as a public figure, that you're against some of the criminalities in the world, specifically the violation of human rights. So, you know, I mean, if she had come and we talked about that, I mean, I could have presented a case to everybody else, and we, you know, as an orchestra, you know, as a public body, you can.
In one sense, what I'm hearing is you actually have a shared vision of things, and there's more in common than there's actually dividing it.
Maybe you just go about it different ways.
Yeah, it's just the issue, the appropriate response. But I still don't have clarity on whether there's actually any policy on these kind of issues, or whether there's anything in the contract.
There's none.
There's nothing.
No.
Right. So
there's a code of conduct.
Is this the first time that something like this has cropped up?
Yeah, it would be. The extent of what happened would be. I mean, there's a code of conduct, and there has been issues in the past with conduct, but nothing major.
Okay.
Nothing that's ever warranted a suspension. It's a simple code of conduct. Again, the example is like a golf club. You have to conduct yourself in a certain type of way, and that's within the contract. There's a small little contract, and that's kind of what we look for when we take people on.
So, you know, a lot in common. What I'd like to do now, if you don't mind, I think I've got to be honest, there's something you feel that you need to add in terms of the detail. I think I've got the headlines, but also the detail in terms of the whole thing. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to have a chat with you on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah.
Right. And just to tease out some things. Now, one thing I actually remember is just kind of spend 5 or 10 or 15 minutes with one person. Right. You might be wondering, what on earth are they talking about?
Yeah.
What's taking them so long? And then I might go back and talk to the other person, and I might be talking 5 or 10 or maybe 15. Just because there might be different lengths of time doesn't necessarily mean that one is getting more favourable treatment or something over the other.
Right.
But I also have to remember that it's double time on my part. You might only be with me for 5, 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay.
But it takes twice as long for me, and I might want to think about some of the things you say to me. But what I'll do is when I've finished with one person, I'll come back to the other, just to say where we're at. So before we break into a one-to-one session, is there anything else that either of you just want to add to what we've got so far?
No, I think I've got it enough.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to start with the chair.
Yeah.
So if you want to
Yeah.
go for a walk or a cigarette or
Perfect.
whatever.